Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraf al-mursaleen. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our lecture, which is today a continuation, of Edward Taylor. I know today we have two presenters. One is going to present House Wefry. The other is I'm the Living Bread. Before they give their presentation, I want to highlight certain important emergent features of Taylor's poetry. Because as we said, Taylor and Bradstreet and the colonial writers were imitating the European, were imitating the English. But in this course, we're trying to hunt, to see what is emergent, like the distinctive features that we can dub American, or features that might later generations of American writers built on. Last time, I think we discussed Upon a Spider Catching a Fly. We saw how that poem was a meticulous reading of the Calvinistic principles, the original sin, the unconditional election, and the irresistible grace of God. We saw how the poet was devoted Christian, and how he saw that the elect are those who are immune to satanic temptation. Today, House Wefry, as you see, it's a poem. I'm going to read it. I know somebody will present it. But as you see, it's another religious poem, typically religious. But it's about a personal religious experience. We know that Taylor was, a priest, a pastor in Westfield. He was preaching, he was giving sermons, and he was writing poetry. Look at this poem, how it is how the persona in this poem is very submissive to the will of God. Okay, yeah, in fact, he was highly influenced by metaphysical poetry, mainly George Herbert, but it's similar to some extent. Make me, this is how the poem begins. Make me, O Lord, thy spinning wheel complete. Thy holy word, my divine distaff. Make for me, make mine affections thy swift flyers neat, and make my soul thy holy spool to be. My conversation make to be thy reel, and reel the yarn thereon spun of thy wheel. Make me thy loom, then knit therein this twine, and make thy Holy Spirit, Lord, wind quills. Then weave the web thyself, thy yarn is fine. Thine ordinance make my falling mills, then dye the same in heavenly colors choice, all pinked with varnished flowers of paradise. Then clothe therewith with mine understanding, will, affections, judgment, conscience, memory, my words and affection, that there shine may fill my ways with glory, and thee glorify. Then mine apparel shall display before ye, then I'm clothed in holy robes for glory. As you see, this poem, like the poet is cajoling, imploring to God to change him, to make him new. He's very submissive. He wants God to make him a new person, to regenerate him. What is interesting about I don't want to go through the poem because I know the presenters will be presenting and I'll be commenting. But what is interesting in this poem, as we said last time, it's this mixing between the divine and the physical. There is we understand, if you remember, right from the early settlers, the diaries of the early settlers, that there was some kind of dichotomy between, materialism and spiritualism, between physical and divine. So what characterizes, Taylor's poetry is this unique, distinctive mixing between divine and physical. Okay, he, like a person of God, usually when you talk about God, you keep away from physical, from mundane things. But here, he is speaking about both, the physical and divine at the same time. Okay? He's yoking together the divine and the physical. This is very symbolic, of course, if you are trying to show how, in order to attain the grace of God, you have to be purified out of sin. You have to be a new person. So I think here, it's very interesting how he used the metaphysical conceit, the metaphysical style in yoking together two contradictory things. Two binaries, like the physical word and the divine word.
And this is genuine to him.
Yes, and this is genuine. This is very interesting. It is he is a precursor of the 19th century. Poetic mindset of Whitman, of Emerson, and others, because those people believed, mainly Whitman, the American society was full of contradictions, and they wanted somebody to celebrate all these contradictories, to bring them into a crucible of harmony, rather than fragmented, discords. Okay? So this is very important. As you see here, he was trying to yoke together, to connect together. The divine and the physical. He's talking about God, but God in the poem should be, he portrays himself as a tool, as a staff, a distaff, as a spool in the hands of God. Why? To make him a good priest, to purify him of the sin, and to make him a new priest who would deliver the word of God. Okay, so this is what is happening. What is known about him, he was yoking together the divine and the physical. Sin and grace, because grace, when people are sinners, it means they have to expiate. When they are sinners, they have to work hard in order to be elected. So both of them are, complementary. He sees them as complementary. Of course, this perception of man's sin, which is Puritan, is going to be stumbling towards any kind of creativity. Later, when we see Emerson next time, Emerson is the first thing he is going to do is to celebrate man as free of sin, free from the original sin. Okay? Because if you need to be creative, you don't have to think of the past, you don't have to think of yourself as bad, as sinner, and so on. Okay. This poem, and his poetry is full of symbolism. And you see, he was reading the Bible, so you can find the allegorical touch of his poetry. What I like here, I don't know, just I want to hint to some symbolic things. Then dye the same in heavenly colors choice, all pinked with varnished flowers of paradise. Now all pinked, the pink color. This is symbolic of Jesus Christ, according to the Christian, like who was redeeming himself by bleeding on the cross, so this color. The whole poem is,
Symbolic.
if you think of yourself as a distaff, as a spoon, as a newly made cloth, which is a holy robe, this is symbolic of God's words. So what I want to say that symbolism is very important here, and as we mentioned earlier, symbolism is going to be to get complicated, in the coming text we are going to study. Now, through reading his poetry, we feel that there was some kind of transcendentalism. And this is too early to talk about transcendentalism with early, but Bradstreet and other colonial poets had that transcendentalist view. We saw in The Living Bread last time how the target of their meditation, the target of their divine, is to connect with the highest, to connect with
the divine,
the ultimate divine. So that was in itself a transcendentalist, but through divine, a keening through, like if you remember the beginning of through astronomy divine. So it's like transcendentalism, reaching the absolute truth through divine meditation. We feel that the poet, when he was like very submissive to God in The Living Bread, we feel that there's some pain, some suffering, some agony. And it seems like the poet was trying to anchor himself, to graft himself to a secure, or to God, like, because he was looking for a peace of mind. He was looking for security. So I think, this self-searching, Puritanism, one of the legacy of Puritanism is lowliness. Because this dogma is built on deprivation, is built on austerity.
They feel that they belong to nowhere and restless. They want to be attached to something. So always they are.
So yes, it's like as an individual, like you are always looking to stability. You're looking to be secure. So the soul is always self-searching. Okay. And this is like what we understand or what we feel in his poetry. He wants God like to make him, to change him, to clothe him. Okay? So that was perhaps, the purpose of that is like to get rid of, what he is now. Okay? Now, I know next week we're going to have a big leap. Because, we have to stop talking about the colonial. But I thought today it would be very important to share with you how Puritanism affected the 19th century and even like modern literature. But it's not only Puritanism. It's, the awakening. We have like in Puritanism, as I told you, it lasted for 70 years, or even 70 years. Then the grip of Puritanism started to lose, and to be weakened. Then there was the Great Awakening. What I mean by the Great Awakening, it's like there were a lot of debates about those Puritan, and man was given more space to think. Okay. So I have to go through, then the Enlightenment. So those like happened in 200 years. So the leap I'm talking about, because next time we are going to talk about Emerson. He's a 19th century. We're talking about his transcendentalism, his principles. Okay? So I thought this would be very interesting to share with you like how those three movements affected the yet to come American literature. Because in the 19th century, there was a strong drive to start literary traditions, purely literary American traditions. Like the Puritans, they have all this. God was all powerful and predestined some persons for salvation. A person attempted to prove as he was among the elect. Everyone, you are familiar with all these things. But individuals were responsible for meeting the needs and the goals of the community. Here, like in Puritanism, like the issue of you as individual, you have this human message, you have to help the other.
Messenger,
Okay?
like
You are a messenger.
in a mission and they have.
That's it. So you have a mission. Okay. You are individual, but individual to serve the community. Again, this is a moral responsibility which will continue to be in the coming text of American literature we are going to study. Now, the awakening, so things started to change. The grip of Puritanism started to be loosened. And like, as you see, God, the Creator, was open to all who made an appeal to Him. It's not only the priest. It's not only the Puritans. I mean, there was some tolerance, after the Puritans. Puritans continued their grip, but after that, the other congregations started to practice freely, mainly the Quakers, the Antinomians, and Presbyterian people. They started to, to develop their argument. There was religious debate. There was more religious tolerance. And of course, that paved all the way to what we call the revolution.
Teacher?
Yes.
Is this the period when they start reading the Bible? I mean, the common people start reading the Bible?
Yeah, of course, like they were reading, but like everybody.
And previously, they were prevented from reading the Bible. Then...
Okay, yeah, this is like, yes, it's everybody, but the Bible was, at this period, during this period, it was not the only guidance to a Christian. Like some people believed, mainly the Quakers, that you can reach God by certain meditation. It's not the Bible. You have more free will. You have more space.
But it seems that it was affected by the change in Britain itself, because Enlightenment, Romanticism, and these movements of free human, they were affected.
Of course,
It was like parallel to them.
Because England had the upper hand. They were not yet
They were totally connected
liberated.
with
They
the
were still
change.
under the rule of British Empire. Okay. A person could make an emotional appeal and gain salvation through the divine grace of God. So here, the grip of the pastors, the priests, is like done without. Many groups believed an organized church was not needed. We don't have to have an organized church. Education was needed for life skills. A trained ministry was not required by all the new churches. So education, there are a lot of concerns. Some churches began to be more democratic, in organizing, in priorities, the priest hierarchy. The conversion of all the individuals to Christianity would improve society. Okay, they had this belief. Now, Enlightenment was another movement. I want like you to think of these, the three movements, as influential elements in the 19th century American literature. The idea of God, the watchmaker emphasized mankind in a rational order. So the idea of God, so it's not only the imagination, it's not only the Bible, like people started to rationalize the idea of God and to put it in a very logical sense. The individual's reason for living was to improve humanity and society. Again, this is a human church was not needed since God was not present, So as God started like to disappear in this church, education was needed to perfect society. Many believed in elite leadership, but that all should have a role in creating and abolishing governments that do not protect the rights of the people. So they wanted a systematic and organized government that takes care of the welfare of people. The individual preferred society by removing all, unnatural laws. Of course, these movements did not come. There were some people who caused this awakening, this enlightenment. So we have Jonathan Swift.
It wasn't overnight.
Yeah, it wasn't overnight. We're talking about a span of 200 years. Okay, but I thought these are very important to look at when we discuss the 19th century. So it's the time of awakening, it's the time of enlightenment, and the Puritan, had its effect, but it was not the main, the powerful. I mean, you had some, style, perhaps some negative remnants of Puritanism on the behavior of people, like self-searching. But all of these work together to decide what the American literature would be like. And of course, as I told you, the American got their political independence in the 18th century, and they had to wait for 1 year, okay, to get their, literary independence. There were many attempts to be creative, to write. I still remember Hawthorne, before Hawthorne, Charles Brockden Brown and others. They were trying to use the elements, the American elements, to build or to start literary traditions. For example, Charles Brockden Brown, this is a famous novelist. Perhaps he was the first American novelist before even Hawthorne. He wrote Wieland or Transformation, in which he was trying to equate, or he was trying to delineate certain Gothic elements which are not the same as in Europe. So those attempts were before, like Emerson, wrote his great treatise, Nature. Just I want to read a couple of quotes to see like how people were complaining that, this is an American, Philip Ferno. He was saying he was envious of, Britain, and he was not happy with American imitating others. Thrice happy Dryden, who could not meet some rival bard in every street. When all were bent on writing well, it was some credit to excel. On these bleak climes by fortune thrown, where rigid reason reigns alone, where lovely fancy has no sway, no magic forms about us play, no nature takes her summer hue. Tell me, what has the muse to do? Now he was complaining about lack of, elements that would
Inspired them.
enable him to create national literature. There was a need to create that natural literature. And here, you have Charles Brockden Brown himself. He was saying, he was writing in a literary journal, genius in composition, like genius in every other art, must be aided by culture. Okay, so there should be a cultural rebirth. Supported by patronage. They complaining like nobody was ready to patronize, like to give support to writers. okay, and supplied with leisure and materials, but a people much engaged in the labors of agriculture, in a country rude and untouched by the land of refinements, cannot, with any tolerable facility or success, carry on at the same time the operations of the imagination and indulge in the speculations of Raphael, Newton, or Pope. Like there was here, Charles Brown was saying, yes, we need to develop our national literature. Webster, have you heard of Webster Dictionary?
Yes.
Okay, so Webster was an 18th century. What did he say? Noah Webster. He was trying to say that the Americans should have also their language. It's not only culture, it is the language. And the Americans were living in the north and the south were talking British English. So here, Webster say, Great Britain, whose children we are, and whose language we speak, should no longer be our standard. Okay? For the taste of her writers is already corrupted. So they started to think of English literature and the writers are corrupted people. Okay. Should no longer be our standard, for the taste of her writers is already corrupted, and her language on the decline. For, you see, so, as you see here, there was a drive for creativity, there was a drive for having a literature.
A new identity.
Yeah, a new identity. So what I want to say, like this period, I mean the Puritan, yes, we don't have great literature, we don't have American literature as a pure American literature, but we have some writers who imitated, yet they started in a very modest way to pave the way for the yet to come American lit. Okay, I know the presenters are waiting to present. So who will start first? Am I the living bread or Hanan or Hadil?
So, hello everyone. My name is Hadil Mahdi, and I am happy today and sad at the same time. So, two contradictory things as the poem that I will explain to you. I'm happy because I am monumentalizing myself through making a presentation in this taped video lectures, and I am sad because I'm so sick, and I think that I look miserable, and my voice even is so miserable. So I'm going to discuss today Edward Tyler, Meditation 8, John 6:51. First of all, I'm going to make a recitation, and then what's up with the title, analysis, symbolism, and metaphors, American features, 2 questions, and then goodbye to Tyler. First of all, I'm going to make the recitation. I am the living bread. If you want just to open your box. Meditation 8 by Edward Tyler, John 6:51. I keen through astronomy divine, the world's bright battlement wherein I spy a golden path my pencil cannot line. From that bright throne unto my threshold lie, and while my puzzled thoughts about it pour, I find the bread of life in it at my door. What when that this bird of paradise put in this wicker cage my crops to dwindle praise, had picked the fruit for bad, and so did fling away its food, and lost its golden days. It fell into celestial famine sore, and never could attain a morsel more. Alas, alas, poor bird, what wilt thou do? The creatured field no food for soul ever gave, and if thou look at angels' core, they show an empty peril. They no soul bread have. Alas, poor bird, The world's white loaf is done, and cannot yield thee here the smallest crumb. In this sad state, God's tender power run our streams of grace, and He to end all strife, the purest wheat in heaven, His dear Son, grants and knead up into this bread of life, which a bread of life from heaven down came and stand, dished on thy table up by angels' hand. Did God mold up this bread in heaven and bake, which from his table came and to shine goeth? Doth He bespeak thee thus, this soul bread take, come eat thy fill of this thy God white loaf? It's food too fine for angels, yet come take and eat thy fill. It's heaven's sugar cake. What grace is this need, is this loaf? This thing, souls are but bitty things it to admire. Ye angels help, this fill would to whip to the prime. Heaven's well town crystal meal pile ye and higher. This bread of life it drops in thy mouth, doth cry, Eat, eat me, soul, and thou shalt never die.
Welcome for recitation. Thank you.
Thank you. Here, before going to analyze the title, I'm going just to give you a hint about Edward Tyler's style. So in order to understand a poem like this, we have to think of four things, or to put in our minds while reading this poem. So the intellectual perspective, the learned allusions, the extended witty metaphors, the abrupt juxtapositions, images. So, of course, we know that Edward Tyler imitated or wrote as a metaphysical poet. So these four characteristics are a metaphysical poetry, and he specialized in meditation. Since we are reading a meditation poem, so each meditation brings a new and odd perspective on the mystery. So while we are moving to the title, we know that he is talking about something, I am the living bread. So from the very beginning, we put in our mind that he's a Puritan, so he is discussing a religious theme. So we're going to understand that this bread is not the bread that we know. It's not the natural bread that we eat. What?
Not the physical. It's not physical.
Yes, I know. So
It's a bread for the soul.
Yeah.
Now this is very interesting. Now the soul is something,
Spiritual.
disincarnate. It is something spiritual. And the food
Physical.
is something
And
physical.
he is using together the physical and spiritual.
Okay, so again here in this poem, as we said, like he's reconciling the materialistic side, the physical side, with the spiritual side. Because this bread, which is of course symbolically, the body of Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Okay.
So, before analyzing this title, I bring to you John Dryden quotation about the metaphysical poets, and he says, "And torture one poor word 10,000 ways." So when we read this quotation, we know that this poor word, they in their own perspective, they intend so many ways, and it has so many connotations to analyze it. So going back to the living bread, as we said that it's not the physical, but it's the spiritual bread that we eat. I want to say that this title he brings this title from the Bible, or especially the Israel's Exodus 16, and this statement says that Christ offer the living bread that come down from heaven as a sign which is given for the life of the world. So this means that this bread, or this summarized what he is going to say in his poem that this bread is a metaphor for Jesus Christ, that he will offer his body in order to give the eternity life for all over the world. From the syntactic level, we have why he said, "I'm the living bread," but not just the living bread. So what do you think? Why he included I am the living bread? So he included, but not he didn't mean himself, that Edward Tyler. He means Jesus Christ. So maybe I think that I am the living bread, to show that Jesus is very happy to redeem himself, or just to gift himself to the Lord in order to redeem the society and the human being. And using ing, that means, it gives a sense of continuity that, there is, I think, a desire of free generation and rebirth. So ing, it includes always there's something continuous. Moving to the first stanza, which is I keen into astronomy divine. From the very beginning, he says, a spiritual scene, astronomy divine, which is something divine. And keening, it means gazing, but it's not, the physical gazing. But I think he sees something that only himself, Edward Tyler, sees, because he is diving through this astronomy world. The world's a bright battlement.
So this is, like the meditation about God, meditation about creation. It was like holding an astronomy and looking at,
Pretending to be good.
because before you see that battlement, you need to have a preparatory, meditation.
Yes.
And this is what he is alluding to. Like, what is the astronomy divine? It's the worship of God. It is. So this is the beginning of the conceit, by the way.
Yes.
Okay.
The world's bright battlement wherein I spy. Bright battlement, it is another biblical image that he brings from Revelation 21:22. This bright battlement, they say that bright light radiate from the New Jerusalem, whose battlements mark the outer reaches of the new heavenly city of a pure gold like a glass. This, I think that, of course, it's an oxymoron. How battlement will be bright. How battlement will bring the bride to the world. That he mentions a New Jerusalem. I think that it is a hint of the beginning of establishing maybe America. I don't know, but establishing a New Jerusalem. We know that there is an existent Jerusalem, but he offers to build a new land that in this land we will have the redemption and we will have the salvation. So this is what he meant. I think that a bright battlement, and I think we have the conceit. We have a conceit
now,
here.
In fact, this image, the battlement, or the bright battlement, is the heavenly world, where like it's the heaven itself.
Yeah.
Okay. So like he was like he can have access to that by meditation, by religious, by worshiping. He can have access.
Yeah. And then a golden bath. This golden bath, I think it's a symbolism for religion. So because he is religious, he is meditation. He is in a meditation case now. So he has a connection between himself and God. So this golden bath, because it's a divine and a spiritual thing, he cannot lie. It's not a physical bath. So this is a hint for a religious, because he is a religious one. So this golden bath is the pride that he mentioned in this bright battlement. And then the bright throne and puzzled thoughts, and finally, because he is a religious one, the bread of life, who is Jesus Christ, he found it in my door. So this door, he means that if you are a religious person, so Jesus Christ will be near to you, and then you will be related and connected to him, to Jesus Christ. So this golden bath, and we will see in the second stanza when Adam committed his sin, he lost the golden bath and he lost the golden days, and this is in the second stanza when he said, "When that bride of paradise." Of course, we know that the bird of paradise is the soul, and the wicker cage is the body. That the soul is analogous.
It's another conceit in the poem.
Yes. Yes, it has so many conceits in the poem. So the wicker cage that the soul, that the soul is captive and enjailed by the body, and then he connected it to the sin of to the original sin, Adam's sin, and he said that it lost its golden days. That because of his sin, he lost the golden days and the golden path. He just lost it, and not even he lost his golden days, but it comes to a celestial famine sore. Famine sore. It's a harsh image how miserable a human being are because of the original sin of Adam, and never attain a morsel more. And then
so we have like this, like shift from grace to sin.
Yes.
Man was created in abundance. Man was in that bright betterment, living. He, was like very happy. Yet, what happened when Satan, insinuated, when Satan tempted man? Man committed, Adam committed that, and then like he was impoverished by this sin.
yes. So in the light of this sin, he also realizes or utters the tone of helplessness and to do anything. So I think he now he paints an image of the people that they are helplessness and what they cannot do. So he raised this question: what wilt thou do? So purport this soul, how we can redeem this soul from this sin, and then extended this image by saying that the angels, even if you ask the help of the angels are helplessness too, and they cannot give you except an empty pearl here, that there is no mercy, that even the angels couldn't help you and redeem you from your sin. And the last two lines, that the word white loaf is done, and white loaf, of course, it's another metaphor for Jesus Christ, and even Jesus Christ. So they lost the redemption that
Yes.
that Jesus Christ want to redeem them
So
from
this is like a
their
desperate
sin.
moment. Like, Jesus Christ came, redeemed people, and now people like still are sinners, still they are intransigent, they decide to commit more sins. What a desperate case is this?
Yes.
Is God going to leave those desperate people?
No,
No,
of course.
Okay.
And even he said, he makes the sin harder by saying even the smallest crumb, the smallest crumb of the loaf couldn't help you. And I think mentioning white loaf here, connecting the color white to the loaf. So loaf is Jesus Christ, and relating this color white. So it's a sense of racism, of course. That since the loaf is white, so Jesus Christ is white, so white people are are privileged than the other.
He is so simple. He means pure things.
Yes.
Purity, not racism or something like that.
Racism. Like a loaf. Like
It's pure.
You wouldn't say black loaf, for example.
There's a black loaf, but
there's wheat
Yeah.
loaf, which is like brown bread.
But I think
Brown
I know
bread.
that, but it's like
Again, like yes,
his
here.
meaning is totally
No, but they are.
Okay, the Bible, the images of the white and the perception of the white, yes, will justify later, slavery. Because, as we said, the Bible justified slavery. They think that the devil is black.
yes.
They think that
So black
the
people are
devil is
devil.
black. So, and later this perception of the black people will make us understand that some literary texts, when they portray those black people or African American as ghosts in their literature. Okay.
Now, in this stanza, he moves from he moves from the stage of miserable and to just, to explain the grace, how God is graceful and how God is mercy. So here he paints, a beautiful portrait of loving, and he just encouraged people to strengthen the relationship between God and them. So in this sad state, God tender Paul's run. So Paul's here in the interior of body, state of tenderness, pity, and grace the heart. So he's shifting between a black image and then a white image for God, and a black image for people and sin. Yeah, yes. And the last stanza, yes, I think. No,
It's
here.
like, it's full of rhetorical questions.
Yes. Here. He.
Oh, yeah.
What?
This means
Yeah,
that he
it
is
has to do with
restless.
this restlessness.
Uh,
Did God mold up this bread in heaven and bake, which from his table came and to this time goes? Does he speak, heal us, this soul bread take? Come eat thy food. Okay, it's good.
But I think that come eat in this case, he has another invitation. He invites people another time to go and just to ask mercy from God, and he portrayed just to come and partake freely from God's mercy. And I think this is obvious. And then how he, sweetened the image heaven's sugar cake, while saying this heaven's sugar cake. So, it's tasty, and how it's sugar cake, and it is another metaphor for Jesus Christ. And I think it's another invitation for people just to come and partake from God's mercy, and God is graceful to His people. And he is on a personal level. On a personal level, God's presence is not simply an abstract concept to Tyler. It's a living reality that he experiences in his everyday life. Here, the final stanza, we have that he concludes his stanza in two contradictory things. The first one, that he summarized, he returned to the image that people, the fragility and helplessness of people, and another time he just put a Calvinist theology that God is graceful and just he will freely extend it to sinners. But here I have to mention that souls are but petty things to admire. It's a syntactic. It's a complex sentence that just the normal sentence. It should souls are but petty things to admire it. So it we don't know whether.
Syntactic, yeah, it's a little bit vague.
What?
Vague. One
Yeah.
grace is this need in this life, this thing. Souls are but pretty things it to admire. These things are admirable to the soul itself.
It's
Yes.
like a poet could not but be gay.
Yeah,
Yes.
very poetic life.
And then the final line, that ate me. So when you eat from this loaf, it will give you the eternity of life. And then Jesus Christ will he creates he makes the process of Jesus Christ is in the heaven, and then he come down, and if you eat from this loaf you will have the eternity life in the heaven another time. Moving back to American features quickly, that we know that transcendentalism is an obvious feature in this poem, since he is talking about divine things and spiritual. And the Puritanism, we know that from the very first beginning that he's a Puritan, and the Puritanism is an obvious theme in this poem. Self-searching, I think, this obvious in the third stanza when he launched so many questions what we're gonna do, and so he is looking for himself in this life. I have this question: how would you read this poem? Of course, as a Muslim. So this question is for you. It talks about salvation and redemption, and it has so many Christian concepts. So how we're gonna read this? Yes.
Okay, first of all the poems, the main theme of this poem is totally contradictory to our Muslim thoughts. So I about showing his idea is something convincing, and I admire his way, just his way, but not his thoughts.
Another reply? Yes, Tagreed.
It could speak our beliefs in Islam and not totally contradictory to it.
Yes.
Since he throughout the whole poem he wants to be faithful to God, and even though we might feel that he's stuck in a hole, in a dark hole or in a dark zone, God will be on your side and help you in your troubles and give you the grace. So it could speak our.
He's talking about Jesus Christ.
Okay, now, like you refuse something and like she thinks there is something in common because all of us are in need of God's mercy. Whenever we commit mistakes, whenever even like we are always looking for the grace.
I have
of God.
another one.
What
Another
is this?
question. Now you are in a Puritan society and we have some publishers here. So give me a reasons or provide me a reasons of from preventing Tyler from publishing his poems. You know, we know that he published or his poems are being published after 200 years. So why do you think that? Do you think that his poems are just it's a matter of fear of from this Puritan society, or it has a further connotation? For example, upon a spider catching a fly. What do you think of this? Is it a normal thing? Why did he prevent himself from publishing his poems? Do you have any answer or just yes, Ramil?
He doesn't want it, so that's it.
So do you think that the reason is simple?
Yes,
No, I don't. I think it has something to do with personal.
Yes.
Again, his approach of like domesticating the issue of God. It's like the metaphysical when they talk to God in a very casual manner. So this is like for a Puritan, like writing poetry. Like of course, poetry was not accepted, and if you look at the Baruch's sensibility, at how he embellished his language, a lot of images, and this contradicts the taste of the Puritan themselves.
Yes.
Okay, I think
Yes, I
we have to
have.
give Hannah.
This is the conclusion. I conclude with this quotation from Edward Tyler. They did a lot of hearing and asked a few questions. So this is. I hope that you interact with me and enjoyed my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's give Hannah 2 minutes, I think.
How are you, everybody? My name is Hanan, as you know. I gonna to present my presentation about the final poem for Edward Taylor, which is Housewifery. Hoping that you will enjoy it. So my outline is I will talk about the title. What's up with the title? The general idea of the title of the poem. I will recite it. Then analysis, theme, American characteristics. First of all, about the title. Actually, when I read the title, I feel that it is a little bit strange because how it is housewifery. It is for women's tasks, for women's it deals for women's more than men. So I feel that it is strange. Also, when I wrote housewifery in the Google, the image of snails appeared to me. So I think that it is related to the content of this poem. Actually, so I want to talk about general idea. For title for Taylor. Taylor, his style is he talking about the general idea of what he's gonna to talk. Then he analyzes in the following stanzas. So in this poem, he asked God to make him a new generation, a new person. Yes. He asked him as he used conceit, how the women use the raw wool into transform it into the magic thing which is clothed. So all the poem deals it talks about this thing.
Transformation.
Yes.
Okay, my recitation to the poem. No, the previous. Yes.
My recitation, actually, I did a video, and
Is it a video?
yes, but unfortunately, it was deleted because of the antivirus.
Okay. No.
So I don't know if you mean that I can, if you.
No, I mean we, recited the poem earlier. So if you go direct, because we don't have time.
Okay.
But this poem, like he was appealing to God, make me, all the time.
Yes.
Okay, you just like skip this.
Actually, my analysis to the poem, he said, "Make me, O Lord, thy spinning wheel complete." First of all, we know he want his God to make him as a spinning wheel, as the tool that there is something complete each other. So from the very beginning, he asked his God to be like his tool.
So this is the main metaphor, like
Yes.
how he wants to be
It's
a
the more-
complete, wheel. And of course, like he cannot be a complete wheel without being fixed. Another part. So the wheel, to be complete, has to go through many preparatory steps. Okay, go ahead.
He said, thy holy words, my stuff make for me. He want his God. You know that this stuff is something. It is the place that the raw wall places in the steel. So as he wants his holy words, which refer to the Bible, I think it's referred to the Bible as a stick to lead him to the
So
the
it will give
values.
him, this is like a symbol, because he needs direction. So this staff will give him a sense of direction, where to go, So
Yes.
he doesn't want to be at loss. Okay, go ahead.
Make mine of fiction thy swift flyer's need, and make my soul thy holy spool to be. It is two images. He wants his emotions to be as a flyers that carry the raw wool, that carry the threads that carry the roll, and he want his soul to be as the spool that gathers these wools.
Okay. Wonderful.
And make my conversation make to be thy real, and real the yearn, then respond on thy will. Also his conversation, his passions, like a reel that which the finished thread transfer into the spinning wheel. So his conversation, he want. I mean, this is the another conceit he want.
So it's
Yes.
a total submission to God. Like he's giving himself to God in order to transform him, in order to make him a new person. Okay.
Yes,
But he's doing that in house roughly, right?
Yes.
Okay.
As
It's
a
not
woman-
domestic. And this is why perhaps some of his poetry, he didn't like, because it's, we don't expect a priest like to talk
A minister
about
even.
God's minister. Yes.
Excuse me, sir, let's talk about the dream, American dream.
Where?
Here in the boom, boom
I'm not sure. Like you might take it as a symbolic, but like you have to pinpoint which, line. Of course, in the American dream, the spiritual is there, you know, is there, the spiritual and the, you know, the physical is there. And this is what he's trying to do. Because he, in this poem, is mixing, as we said, the individual, I mean, the mundane, the physical with the divine. So yes, perhaps these are the two components of the American dream. To live happily and, you know, to live happily and to live spiritually. Okay.
Also in this stanza, he compared himself with the loom. He want his God as a weaver to make as a weaver use the loom in order to make a new thing which is a cloth, and he asked his God to. To gather this majestic,
Threads.
yes, this is threads to make the cloth. Yes, he used, as Dr. Akram said, he dyed the same in the heavenly colors, choice and pinked with the various flowers of paradise. So there is a biblical references. I think it is from it is from the title, which is related to the
Yeah, and
Jesus
it's a flower.
himself.
A flower is
Yes.
something physical, but flower of paradise, which is the body, you know,
Yes.
which is going to be in paradise.
Yes.
I think, yes, Hanan, like, is it okay? Yeah, we can continue the poem because we are running out of time, Hanan. So you can have a few minutes if you want to continue. Is it okay?
You want me to?
Do you want to continue for a few minutes?
No, continue your analysis. Then
So can I come?
analysis of the last stanza.
No, just like you have a few minutes on.
The last stanza, the last stanza, he want to wear this material in order to be closer to the God, in order to yes, to purify himself, to come from the idea of imperfection to the idea of purity.
Yes. So all
Yes.
these, like his will, his understanding, his will, his affection,
judgment,
his
yes,
judgment, his
is-
conscience, his memory, all of them should be clothed
Together.
in
Yes.
a divine robe, and a divine robe, which will enable him to be a good priest, because he cannot be a good priest without going through this, this process of meditation. 2 minutes, I think.
Yes.